What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. I'm Sean Woodland, being joined by Lauren Khalil. Lauren, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm in my new shirt.
That is tremendous. The Miko and Saber shirt. That is a
Gift
popular
for
style
Presley
of
Hirsch.
shirt now that people are making, of the face collage of different people.
Yep.
If you need a late Christmas gift, I'm sure you could express one from Amazon after you put your kids, your pet, yourself, whoever, right onto a shirt.
Yeah.
I made one for Heber Cannon for his 40th birthday.
Yeah. And that
Amazing.
voice is Tommy Marquez. Tommy, how are you?
I'm good.
Dad
I'm
watched
tired, but
1 month. We're like a month in now, right?
by the time this airs, it'll be a month exactly. So
Wow.
yeah,
You look
1
tired.
month in. I am tired.
Yeah, you look a different man.
Yeah, and I shaved my facial hair into a mustache because I feel like every kid at some point has some like cherished vintage photo of them and their dad with some like weird mustache from a time in the past. And you're like,
My dad always
I'm like,
rocked
well, I want my kid to have a mustache pic with his dad, you know?
it. No, it's not. I'm not.
But you have no gray in it. No gray has developed over the last
Just
month.
wait.
Oh. Yeah, just add 2 months and we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
We'll keep a check on it.
We got a busy show today. The main chunk of this is going to be spent speaking with Pat Vellner. Tommy and Lauren sat down with him Tuesday, got his thoughts on everything going on. CrossFit's response to the investigation, what they had to say about that, and what the PFAA is doing, and Pat's thoughts. Is a really good interview. So we'll have that coming up a little bit later, and we have some news items that we want to get to as well, just to get you updated on the things that are going on about the community. But first, we want to thank our sponsor for today, Kreatures of Habit. Kreatures of Habit, just the best high-protein overnight oats that you can buy. You go to creaturesofhabit.com, use our code TEF, you're going to save 20%, and you're going to build healthy habits. And look, they have 30 grams of protein in each serving, in each packet. So you just dump that in a container, 30 grams of protein. Plant-based, they have probiotics and prebiotics, omega-3 and healthy fats, dairy-free, gluten-free, non-GMO, and they're soy-free. And they take you about literally a minute to prepare for the next day. You stick it in the fridge. You got a meal for whether you wake up, you can take it to work for a snack. It's fantastic. They have all kinds of great flavors.
So good.
The maple one is just chef's kiss. That one is, especially this time of year,
Makes you feel all warm with holiday cheer.
into it. And then you can dress it up too. Like I just throw water in, stuff it in the fridge, take it out the next day.
Water?
And eat it. But I just mix it with water. That's it. Nice and basic.
You're a water guy.
Oh, okay.
Nice and basic.
I'm
Interesting.
a Fairlife milk guy.
See? Got all kinds of good
Yeah.
stuff.
It adds even a little bit of extra protein, makes it a little thicker.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Creatures of Habit. They are fantastic. Starts with a K. Creaturesofhabit.com. TEF is the code. You will save 20%. And look, you got time. They make great stocking stuffers. Do the packets. Just saying.
That's a good idea.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Stocking stuffers.
Yeah.
You're looking
Travels
for
well.
it. Order a box.
Put it under the tree.
Taken care of. Another thing we want to tell you guys about, we have a partnership with First Form. First Form, that's 1ST Form, PHORM.com/TEF. You go to that URL, use the /TEF. You can get some great stuff, and then we get credit for it. Man, I don't even know where to start. I know Tommy's a big fan of the meat sticks.
The meat
The meat sticks.
Oh.
Their bars saved me at the Masters CrossFit Games.
Oh.
They had the apple bars. Oh my God, those are good.
Sean ran to the booth and basically
You
took
guys have
every
got to
last
get
one.
these. They're so good. Yeah. First Form, 1ST Form, PHORM.com/TEF. Check them out. Also, bars make great stocking stuffers.
And their protein, if you want to really elevate your Creatures of Habit,
Ooh.
put a scoop.
Synergy, it comes
into
together.
Creatures of Habit.
There you go.
And now you got 60 grams.
Dang.
You've already put a good dent in that protein macro. Oh, nice, Tommy.
Good call.
I like
Good
that.
call. Okay, so creaturesofhabit.com. TEF is the code, 20%, and firstform.com/TEF. Okay, let's get into it. We had a couple big competitions that went on this past weekend. The first was in Dubai, where it was Karin Frey and Lazar Djukic won. And I know everyone, that was great to see. That's a competition that Luka and Lazar were known for. They were there all the time. And then we had Fit Fest, and that was the one that, Lauren, you were there last year, that, I don't want to say Wodapalooza certainly didn't steal anything because the Invitational was sort of the all-star event. But it was sort of the precursor to Wodapalooza SoCal, showing that all-star format would work. And you had Team Europe went up against Team Rest of the World, and Team Rest of the World triumphed in that. But it was great to see Sarah Sigmund's daughter back out on the competition floor. She was there.
Yeah.
That's it's good to be talking a little bit about competition again. And I didn't have a chance to watch a lot of the coverage. But look, it's just nice to have competition going again, because I think Dubai is sort of the beginning of the end of the off season. And then Wodapalooza really is sort of like the end / kickoff of the next year.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like you said, reiterating what you said about Luca winning. I mean, won pretty dominantly actually by over 100 points. But that was actually the first event that I saw Lazar compete in person. Was 2019 when he took 5th. But I would love to, I know in due time he'll give it to us, but I would love just to talk to Luca about that experience.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the emotion of like the post of him on the podium, and just probably some catharsis of just getting back out and competing. In a place that you feel safe for you, and a place that you genuinely cherished with your brother, and even better to walk away with a win and beat out some pretty talented guys in Europe is no joke. So and Karin Frey's, this has been an event she's excelled at for many years. So
she won last year too, I think.
Yeah, and it was good to see that Jamie Simmons getting back in the mix. This is another event that she's been excellent at. Her and Karin were actually in that pretty much four-way win and you're in to the CrossFit Games of 2018 with Sarah and Sam, when Sam walked away with it. But the Kristen Holto was in the podium mix for quite a bit too. So nice to see some of those names back towards the top of the leaderboard and kind of mixing things up at high level comp.
Yeah. And FitFest, I think too, always looks like a good time with the way they pull it off. And I think that, that all-star format is, especially in the off season, it's just great for the athletes. They can go, it's low pressure. They put on a show. Fans love it. Fans get a chance to see, a group that they really don't usually get to see, and everyone's happy. And now we can kind of move on to 2025, because I think that's it for any sort of major competitions. And then Wodapalooza gets us kicked off in January, and then the Open is right around the corner. So congratulations to everybody who competed over in Dubai, and congratulations to Luca and to Karin especially for the victories. Okay, we mentioned this last week, and that is the documentary. And it was, despite me sitting here saying how they needed to promote this and why didn't they promote it, it was the number one documentary on iTunes. So you know what? Good choice by CrossFit. They didn't have to promote it. It's still number one. You two have gotten a chance to see it. I have not. And I do want to watch it, because this is the first one that has been done by an outside entity that wasn't very super familiar with CrossFit. They came in with not a lot of knowledge about the sport. I think they had some idea about maybe some of the stories they might want to tell based on some research they have done. But and Lauren, we'll start with you. How do you think it turned out?
It's hard. I should really have my sister watch it, who really knows not much about CrossFit, because I feel like the first 15 to 20 minutes really were like an educational piece on what is CrossFit, what is the CrossFit Games, some of the history with athletes. And then it wasn't until after that you really got into some character development and what's happening at the CrossFit Games with each, it took you through each workout, like we have seen in all of the docs. But it definitely was stylistically much different than I think what we're used to when it comes to a little bit of bouncing all over the place versus telling something in a very seamless storyline fashion. I would like to go and watch it again to do a second pass through, because now I'm expecting certain things, and I think I can watch it with a more critical eye. Overall, I think that I liked it. I like consuming CrossFit content, so it doesn't really surprise me that I enjoyed it. There were some question marks to me on why they might have chose to interview certain athletes during certain points. And maybe that's just, again, me from more of a critical eye. The three of us and anybody in the media landscape, you have such a continuous pulse on where the storylines are, where when you ask an outside media entity to do it, maybe they're looking at it from a different perspective, or, okay, what athletes are going to give us really good interviews, and that will carry the doc more. So overall, I enjoyed watching it. But yeah, I want to watch it again, and I'll probably force my sister to watch it to see what she thinks.
Yeah, I would. I think once you watch it, Sean, I would like to give it a second pass through. We can maybe kind of do a full review of it. But my initial instinct is, one, the tone of it was very, very different. I want to say this. I'm not sure exactly what they may have changed, because I wouldn't be surprised if they went back and made some edits, because they glossed over some very curious things that I thought had relevance to the athletes that they chose, as well as the storylines that were relevant to the overall leaderboard and the story of the games. Like, one of which being like the bike crash between Lazar and Justin Medeiros. That I don't think they just it felt like a footnote, and then they just kind of jumped to like Justin's accounting of the story. And there were a couple other curious things where hey, this kind of relevant thing to the story of the games happened, and it wasn't really included, or was just kind of touched on. And so I think big picture, just after the first pass, this in the past, whether it was Heber and Marston, Ian, Mariah, them controlling it, it felt they always felt, love it or hate it stylistically, it always felt like they told the story of the CrossFit Games, and then that was paramount, and then they wedged in athlete interest pieces and side stories, like human interest stories, after the fact. It's hey, we laid the bones of what's the story that's relevant to the competition and just telling the story of what are the CrossFit Games, and then we'll insert athlete stories and things like that in, and that will guide it. This felt like, hey, we're going to go follow a handful of athletes and tell their story of their experience at the CrossFit Games, and then we're going to go back and insert the overarching story and results of each event and stuff like that. So it felt very different. The order, the hierarchy of where the baseline of the story felt very different to me. And I think part of that too, a kind of addition to that point, is that the live competition parts, save maybe Roman's injury and a couple other pieces, didn't quite have that punch. And it felt like a lot of times the live competition playing out, or the highlight sizzle stuff, that really high energy stuff we're used to seeing in the documentaries, was a lot more tempered. And live competition highlights were more a medium for other people to continue telling stories and background information and provide context. You, myself, and you, and Chase, and other people as well. Whereas you would get these pieces where Marston and Heber, are some of the best there are at these really high energy, snappy, really cool, eye popping competition things. And then you'll insert some commentary and context. These felt like commentary, context first, and then let's layer some competition on. And it just changed the vibe of it.
So it's more character driven than event driven.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe
and
so.
I think that's probably more of a traditional take on. That's usually how more my gold standard for sports documentaries or stuff like this is Hard Knocks on HBO. That series is phenomenal. And they do at the top, it's more about, let's find the guys that we're going to follow, and that's who we're following. Results be damned. We might have a guy who gets cut. We might have another one. We got the old wily veteran who's looking for another one more trip. You don't hear a lot from the stars. It's mostly guys kind of trying to make a roster spot. And so I really want to see how that approach plays out.
Yeah, and I would even say Hard Knocks has evolved over the years, right? Because they were kind of getting accused of losing their fastball, because it was the same thing over and over again from training camps with just different teams. And then I think their in-season stuff with the NFC North or the AFC North has been
in-season
fantastic.
stuff. I think is better. That's better to me. Yeah,
because there's actual instead of just making a roster, like there's actual gameplay and like.
Well, there you
like
go. Like,
real,
so in that approach, is it more, we're still following characters and then there's like a background of, hey, here's what happened in the game. Like, I don't know. I just think it should always be character driven, and I'm just really interested to see how that plays out. And to Lauren's point, I think the thing that I was the most curious about is that would this be accessible to someone who knew nothing about this? So if I could go and say, hey, there's this cool documentary, to someone who knows nothing about CrossFit, who's a friend of mine, I could be like, hey, you want to watch this? And if they would come away being entertained and wanting to know more, then I think mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I think yes, they could, but I also think they would learn less about the games and what actually happens in the CrossFit games than in previous years. They would probably learn more about specific athletes and maybe be a little bit more tied to those athletes, because they definitely spent more time on some of that character development.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was because they were solely. I mean, I think they ignored certain athletes that, like, you know, the complaint was always like, why didn't they cover this person? Why didn't they cover this person? Why didn't they cover this person? And I think those complaints are just as valid in this one here, because it definitely felt like, hey, we picked our horses and we're going with it.
Which is fine, because like when you get those complaints about you can't cover everybody. You've got to pick a few. Just stick with them is all I want to know. I want to know, like, if you pick the person who finishes dead last, fine. Just tell me that story and follow it all the way through.
Yeah, for sure. There were some pieces and cutaways and like athlete features that felt a little shoehorned in and it felt like a little forced.
All right.
But you know, I still enjoyed it. I still, you know, kind of watched it without hesitation, and I'll definitely watch it again. I don't know, and maybe it's just I'm so used to having that energy at any of that games content like that. It felt like there was missing just a little bit of zip, almost like when
I would agree.
Like when your soda gets just a little flat.
Okay.
You're like, the sweetness is there, the flavor's still there, but it just doesn't quite have that, like, you know, the Dr. Pepper fizz in it, you know?
I feel like before this, anytime I'd watch a doc, there were moments where you would get goosebumps or you get amped and you're like, oh my God, I want to go to the gym and PR this because I'm so excited. You know what I mean? And you're right. I don't think that I had a moment where I felt like that.
There were definitely some emotion. Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking even like the big thing that year was Roman's injury and him doing the double unders. I had so much emotion when I was in the Coliseum watching it in real time. And I don't know, and maybe I'm just too close to the situation because we were there, but I didn't get the same emotional tie in the way that like people were freaking crying in the Coliseum.
Oh, man.
Like the emotion was just electric. And I don't know that it transitioned in the same real authentic way that it was.
It was definitely still emotional. I thought they did a good job with it. I think what could have taken it next level is having that little bit of zip. I thought they, you know, there's like the different layers of emotion, right? I thought they did the heartfelt sad element of it really well.
Yeah.
But it missed out on like that inspirational, like, yeah, let's run through a wall type thing, because they did an excellent job, including the post-game interview when they asked him why he went out there and they had a camera there following. I'm sitting there holding my, you know, 1-month-old son, and Roman's talking about how he wants to be a hero. Hits
differently, doesn't it?
And then I'm like, you know, bawling into my chest in the living room, like, oh man. So yeah, that definitely hit me a little bit more for sure.
That was, you know, it's funny. Not the Chase and I calling that we're both, you know, pretty emotional, but that's when he mentioned his kid. I'll never forget the reaction from Chase. Like there was, oh God, you know, like he got, and we were both that way. I hope he doesn't mind me telling that story, but it definitely, like he was holding it together. I was holding it together, but then when that came out, it was, oh no.
Game over.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So I'm looking forward to watching it. I just haven't had a chance to check it out, but it was at number 1. I think I checked today and it's down to number 3 because I think two new documentaries just came out that have gotten a little more, I think, buzz. But you know, proved me wrong. Here I was thinking like, got to promote this. Well, no, number 1. So.
I mean, I'd also be curious just to see, like, and this isn't knocking it being number 1, but is iTunes as popular of a streaming platform now as it was back in the day?
I mean, I think I'll just speak for me. I go there first for that kind of stuff. Like if I know I'm going to download and buy a movie, that's where I'm going.
To iTunes?
Yes.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever gone to iTunes.
I went to Prime Video this time, and I normally
that's what I did.
iTunes. Okay. Yeah. So I'd be curious. I actually want to know how it did on those other platforms that you could purchase it too. Because
did they say what it did on Prime?
I don't think so, because
I'm
there is
curious
competition.
That is so easy.
Yeah, but it's also another opportunity for them to do really well too. You know.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if they ever do another one. So who knows? Okay. Before we move on to our guest, Pat Vellner, that Tommy and Lauren conducted that interview yesterday, we want to thank our other sponsor for today. That's Thirdsy and their Rest and Recovery Collagen that you can get right now. Thirdsy.com. That's THIRDZY.com. Use our code TEF. You save 20%. I don't know what more I can say about this than I've already said. It is an absolute game changer when it comes to your sleep and your recovery. It doesn't have any melatonin in it, so it is not habit forming. It has GABA, L-theanine, magnesium, ingredients that help calm your central nervous system so you go to sleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up feeling better. I know Tommy is he's in it now. So that third's you need to get the most out of the sleep that you get, and it absolutely helps you do that.
It's funny because you would say that, and I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about, because I take it and I get a great night's sleep and I sleep enough. And now I'm like, I got 4.5 hours, and that this is my window. Like, dry scoop, just give me all the Thirdsy, and then I'm like, all right, I feel better. I didn't get enough, but I got good sleep there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at that moment where it like loading bar, and I'm like, oh, that's what Sean's finally talking about.
Because there were like, before I was taking it, I would wake up just like, oh man, I can't move. I'm not getting up. And now it's like I get up and I'm good. You know, I just take a few steps. I'm like, all right, let's do this. So check them out, Thirdsy.com. Check out their Rest and Recovery Collagen. Tastes great. You take it every night. Just down it with 8 ounces of water, and it's just, or whatever else you want to mix it in. You can mix it with other protein too, like that. You make yourself a little protein concoction. It's fantastic. But that's all it takes. You just drink it before night, and it's sleepy sleep with some good dreams and nice and solid. And the other thing for me is too, like if I wake up at night, because I'm old and I got to go to the bathroom, I go back and just get into bed and I'm out again. There's no tossing and turning or anything like that. Works out really well. So Thirdsy.com and use our code TEF. Okay. Pat Vellner sat down with Tommy and Lauren yesterday, talked about a lot of stuff, including CrossFit's, is it a response or wrapping up of the investigation and the subsequent actions that they are taking, PFAA's response, kind of where he is personally with everything. It was a really great conversation. So here is the conversation between Pat Vellner, Tommy, and Lauren.
We now want to welcome our guest, 9-time CrossFit Games individual athlete, Pat Vellner, on the heels of the Christmas season, recently moved, so you have Wi-Fi and a place to put your laptop.
Yeah, I can't promise how good it is yet. Moved from being on an island in the middle of nowhere to out in a forest in the middle of nowhere. So we'll see how we do.
At least you're consistent.
Have you always liked being in the middle of nowhere and being in a remote location for your home?
I don't know. Well, I mean, no, I spent the better part of 10 years in the middle of the biggest cities in Canada, but I don't know. I think there's something nice about having a little space. We're enjoying it for sure. The island was fun. Here, maybe I can pan it over.
Oh, that is a winter wonderland.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I've been shoveling a ton of it the last week. So
it's
good. Good thing my fitness is so functional.
Yeah, I was gonna say, any new like snow shoveling workouts you've been doing, kind of reignite some of those small muscles you maybe haven't hit in a while?
Oh God, no. It makes me happy. I have a pretty decent posterior chain though. I was like Sunday too. I did a big shovel on Sunday, and then I trained after, and then I that's my last day of the week, usually training wise, and then I take Monday rest day. So your boy's just a little beat up by the last day of the week, and not like training's been crazy lately, but with moving and everything, it's just you're tired at the end of the week. And then I shoveled and worked out, and I was like pummeled. Went to bed and my hamstrings and low back and everything was so sore. On Monday, I was like, oh, So yeah, you forget. It's pretty hard work, and it's worse if you're lazy. Like I'm really guilty of being a snow like shovel procrastinator. Like there's people who will go out and in the middle of a snowstorm, they'll start shoveling. So they'll shovel like 3 times over the course of like a couple hours because it just keeps snowing. And I'm very much like, I'm going to let it finish snowing and then I'm going to go shovel. But the problem is here, like it'll snow for 24 hours and then it's like, there's 12 inches of snow. So then I get out and I'm like, all right, you're digging the car out, you're shoveling, and you start, you feel good about that decision until you start. And then you're like, it stops snowing. If it's warmed up a little bit and the snow gets heavy, it's like every shovelful is so heavy. You're like, fuck, now I gotta just, you like take a little break and look down the road at how much you have to do. And you're like, hey, put a little music in. And I made a post about it the other day. I probably put 2 hours in shoveling. And it's just like, we're still getting tons of deliveries for the new house. So half of it's like, all right, I got to shovel this out because we're expecting a bunch of deliveries this weekend. And like the furniture company's got to be able to pull right up to the door or else we're not getting our couch or whatever it is. And you're like, okay, well, guess I'm shoveling.
Yeah, it's kind of important.
These are problems that Tommy has never had to understand, but truthfully, and I am much weaker than you, Pat, but I have gotten my weightlifting belt out before to shovel because because you wait until it's done and then sometimes it's too heavy. So you're really trying to maneuver it. And
well, it's funny. I feel like because, I haven't worked in a little bit since we moved, but I do a lot of work in clinic. And on the island, it was a little bit different, but those are like the main times when people hurt their backs is like beginning of winter when people start shoveling. And it's just like you go out and you get tired because it's a lot of work and the snow gets heavy and you're like kind of lifting and bending and twisting and people tweak something. And then the other one is end of the summer when golf season starts and people don't do any rotational anything. They haven't swung a golf club in like 6 months. And then they go to the range and just crank driver for like 2 hours, hit like 300 balls. And then they come in the next day and they're like, oh, like, I don't know. And you're like, well, wait, did you do anything different this week? Not really. I mean, I went to the range. Oh, was it your first time out this season? Yeah. What did you do? I just hit balls at the range. How many shots? I hit probably like 3 buckets. Oh, you're like,
there you go.
Same as the guy who's like, I haven't shoveled at all for 6 months. And then I went out and just shoveled heavy snow for 2 hours straight. It's like, yeah. I mean, at least for like Laura, for you and I, we're like, I pull from the ground a lot. So it's like,
we're trained for it.
There's my my bit of functional fitness that gets me through the day. It's like I do a lot of that. I bend over and I pick things up off the ground a lot. And so when I have to do it like that, I'm all right. But it's still hard. It's still hard for me. So I can only imagine people I got a lot of neighbors with snowblowers and I might be calling in some favors.
Oh man.
I'll let some people use the gym in the garage and maybe they come.
I like that trade.
That's a good exchange. Yeah.
I still have to dig out our other car and there's a trailer I have to lend to my parents-in-law. And that's one of my today projects. I basically buried it in to get the lane free for the delivery trucks. And now I have to undo that. Lack of foresight maybe, but whatever. You get desperate.
Oh man. All right. Well, I mean, we want to dive into a little bit of the recent news happening just because a lot of it has come down the pipe. I know we had a competition weekend this past weekend with a few events, but more recently, some statements and developments around the season have come out. And we'll kind of go back with the initial response from CrossFit about the investigation. Pat, you and I kind of chatted briefly offline a while back, but going back to that initial revelation that the results weren't going to be released, what was just kind of your instinctual reaction when you heard that, okay, like results aren't being released, the transparency that we were hoping for and were, kind of promised aren't actually going to materialize?
I mean, truthfully, I don't think I was very surprised, which is sad, I think. But that's kind of the point it's at. And I think that's why, myself and some of the athletes involved in the PFAA PFAA decided to make that statement a long time ago was we felt that was very likely given some of the way we've seen controversial things be managed in the past. Is there's often this kind of like delay until you can distract with something else and then hope people just kind of forget and move forward. So, we thought that is, at least a possible outcome. And, I think there's also, I'm not in those meetings with the games team, and there's a very good chance that, it's partly to protect themselves. Right. So I think that's the other thing that most people can kind of see or predict a little bit is that it's like, yeah, I mean, of course, like what else are you going to do? I think you could potentially open yourself up to like serious lawsuits or litigation if you are not really careful with what you say. So maybe the best thing to say is nothing. And, but I'm speaking with some other athletes. We kind of felt like it was a nothing statement. Almost everything that was put out could have been said a day after the games. So the 3 weeks or the 3 months wait was kind of just like, all for nothing. But yeah, that's sort of what it felt like. It sort of felt like much ado about nothing, I guess. Like we were kind of not super surprised, a little disappointed. But so that's sort of the way it's been dealing with them for the last little while, I would say.
Going back to the PFAA's original demands in the list that you guys presented shortly after the games, now that we have a bigger scope of, their response or their lack thereof response, is there anything that you guys would have changed or done differently in those demands?
I don't think so. I think that by and large, any of the controversy around some of the things that we asked for or said was mostly a lack of understanding. I think that most of the really hardcore athlete, anti-PFAA rhetoric is all based around conjecture on things that we didn't say. Like, oh, you're trying to get Dave Kessler fired. I'm like, no, we're not. We're asking for him not to be on the sport team. Like, oh, you're doing like, there was all this stuff that just like, it wasn't actually what we said or did or asked for, but it's kind of straw manning. And it's a lot of it is, unfortunately, it's pretty common playbook for anybody who's trying to discredit at one side of an argument or a perspective. So, again, I don't think that matters. Our point was to take a reasonably strong stance, given that we've tried to do the opposite in the past for the last kind of 4 or 5 years with no success. I think that if you do what you've always done, expect what you've always gotten. So we tried to dig heels in a little more and see if there was a way to apply more pressure and push them to behave differently. And it seems like there isn't.
And kind of with that, there was also the announcement that they're for like the third or fourth time now they're going to create another athlete board. And that just kind of, I don't know, the phrase you said, if you do what you always did, you're going to get what you always got, kind of to some extent. Where does that decision for them to create another athlete board land for you guys? Because they tried that in the past. It didn't seem like it was very effective. And now it seems like it's, I don't know. I don't know if it feels like it's a shot at you guys or at the PFAA, but it just feels, I don't know, kind of disingenuous.
I don't know. I honestly, I can't speak for everybody on the PFAA board right now either, but I think that it feels a little bit deliberate. I think that they made this statement saying that they were going to have an athlete board voted on by athletes. Literally, I think 2 days after we closed our athlete vote to vote in an athlete voted board, like we just did that. And I think in all of their statements that they've made in the last, many months, they have not once acknowledged the existence in words or writing or anything of the PFA at all. So it just seems like, again, it's a very deliberate attempt to just discredit that organization and make it seem like they don't speak for athletes. And this was another thing from our initial list of demands that got kind of flagged by a lot of people is like, hey, they don't speak for me or whatever. And we haven't been cagey about the fact that the PFAA is a association for the elite athletes in the sport. Like the membership is about a little over 100. And it's games athletes or podium level semifinals athletes. That's who it represents. It doesn't represent necessarily the interests of everyone involved in the Open. But we feel like people involved in competition, particularly live competition, to steal a phrase from CrossFit, the needs of athletes vary by degree, not kind. So the things that we need or desire should reflect in some way the needs and desires of many people. So I think the other thing that looks like, and this is where we're not really sure because CrossFit hasn't really released, to my knowledge, how they're going to select. I think they recently sent out an email asking people to apply for board positions, although there was a pretty strict list of criteria. For example, I'm not eligible to apply.
Why?
I don't have a level 1.
Oh.
So again, being exclusionary in that respect, like again, someone could argue like our group is exclusionary, but it's performance based for people performing in sport, requiring that someone take a course that like acknowledges, as like a, almost not as a governing body, but like you have to pay CrossFit to take a course to then be on their thing. Like you're in some way already embedded into that system, and you're less likely to what's the word I'm looking for? Speak out against them. So I think it's a level of control that's put in there. I think there's ones like you couldn't be a retired athlete. You have to hold an active level 1 or be registered in one. So like Brent and I are both not eligible, Brent having just retired.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. Anyways, but I think that part of the question is who is allowed to be nominated or be involved, because the one thing that for sure is true is that our board and our membership is primarily individual athletes. We have some special criteria to involve certain team athletes or divisional, like masters, age groups, adaptives, whatever. But it's primarily individuals, elite individuals. And if CrossFit Games wants to say, oh, we want to involve athletes who are of the Open caliber, oh, we want to have team athletes, teenagers, masters, that there's value to that. I can't argue with that, but I would just say that like those, what I would hope is that then the decisions that they are voting on or deciding on affect those divisions and don't just primarily affect the elite individuals, because in their statement they released, some of the things that they said they were going to do, like having more robust safety briefings and walkthroughs and all these things, those things really only apply to the individuals competing at the games. So if that group is swallowed up and underrepresented in their board, they're then becoming a minority voice in decisions that affect only them. And that's a problem. So that's where we're kind of like, hey, if we're talking about decisions affecting elite competition, why are we talking to people that are not involved in it? So that's, and we don't, honestly, I don't know, because I don't know where their board's going to end up. I will say their history with their groups isn't great. They've generally not lasted more than 6 months. I don't think. We've spoken to members of all of their previous boards, and they've generally been assembled and dismantled in under 6 months. So I don't know. We'll see.
And is that
hope for better?
Is in regards to that process, like, has there been feedback as to why? Because I mean, that's like, you could run any number of iterations of the corporate playbook as to why they would, do it for, do it for show, essentially, to boil it down. But I don't know. You've spoken with those members. Was there any real reason why they would build it just to dismantle it in such short order multiple times?
I don't know. I know the most recent one, we spoke to one of the athletes that was on it not that long ago, and they had said that they didn't even communicate when it was disbanded. This athlete had to reach out to CrossFit to ask when the next meeting was, and they just said like, oh, there was no more meetings. So like communication was somewhat lacking. Members of one of the previous councils had said that it was much like what we experienced in the PFAA with our repeat meetings with the games team, that it was the same problems being constantly brought up. Like anything that we would bring to them, it felt like would just recycle every week on every call and nothing would ever happen. And occasionally they would bring something up to us, but it wasn't, from what those athletes said, it was generally not, it was like, hey, is this okay? Almost like it wasn't like they were looking for a ton of feedback. So it seemed like a lot of one directional communication from what I understand. And I don't know, I wasn't on any of those boards. So I only have word of mouth, but I don't know. I think part of it's probably optics. And I think there probably is some willingness to try to do something different. I just don't know if it's getting to the end point. It always felt like with our dealings with them, there was like commitment early on, and like the ball would start rolling and then it would kind of stop and it wouldn't get over the hill, and then it just starts rolling backwards, and then everybody gets a little bit frustrated, and then it kind of just stops. So I don't know if it's just we're having trouble getting things to the end. Whether that's deliberate or not, I have no idea, but it's certainly been a challenge for us, and it sounds like the other boards as well.
And the disheartening thing to me is that, and I could be totally wrong and off base, and I want to ask you about it, Pat, but it seems like the creation of this almost puts the athletes against each other, because you're going to have this group of athletes that speaks and has their voices heard from the PFAA, and then you have what I assume would be a separate group of athletes. I don't know if they can both be on each of them, that represents the well-being of athletes, that speaks to CrossFit. Do you get the feeling from other athletes? Do you feel like it's actually doing that?
There's some amount of that, I would say. I would say overwhelmingly the athletes that are competing kind of at the games at the highest level, we speak to a lot of them. Like we do, despite what the internet might have you believing, we do talk to a lot of them. And, whether or not I personally agree with every one of them, we are trying to move to advocate for things that are in the best interest of the whole athlete body. So it's important for us to hear all those voices, and we actively seek out the ones that don't think like me, so that I can hear that, and it shapes our conversation and our decisions. That's why some of the members we have on our recent board were nominated, just because they're different voices from different areas, different regions, different like personalities. It's important. I think that in the earlier stage competition group, like people who really love the open or whatever, you maybe get a slightly different lean, and that's where you may get conflict. But that's what I'm saying. Like, what problem are we trying to solve? Like, are we looking to workshop solutions for problems in the open or at the games? Because the voices you want to hear from for both of those problems are different. You want more information from gym owners or whoever when it comes to the open, but that stuff's it's just not as relevant when it comes to, what's Syndicate Crown going to do? What's CrossFit Games going to do? Like those decisions are just different, and they involve different people to a bigger degree. So yeah, I mean, maybe there's a little bit. I don't think there's anything wrong with like disagreement. I think that's fine. That's how you get, you can disagree on something and still be civil about it and find the best solution that appeals to the most people. It seems like overall, this isn't just a CrossFit ecosystem problem. This is a global problem. More and more people have a hard time with that notion. So it's fine. Like, it's fine if my needs are different than your needs. Like, that's cool, man. Yeah, they are. Like, and if I lived your life exactly like you, then I would think just like you, and I would want what you want. But like, we're everybody's coming from different places. So trying to understand that a little bit can be challenging, but it's important. So that's why the conversations are good. And I'm happy to hear from people and talk to people. And my hope is that if their board takes shape with members of all different divisions, and it functions really well, my hope is that, some members of our executive board who are eligible will likely be on it, or members of our membership will be on it who are in our discussions, and they will represent the interest of that elite athlete group, just like we would. And we're having two-way conversations with them, So they know what we're talking about and where they're aligned with kind of what the overall goals of the PFAA body is. And so they would just table those things with that group. And then whether or not those things completely align with, say, whoever their chief representative of the open or the teenager division is, that's where there has to just be conversation to figure out what happens within the game season. But like, that's all it is. You just hope that that's how it functions and that then those perspectives are taken into consideration. Because, you know, we've seen a lot of times, or like we saw, frankly, at the games, a lot of athletes get together and talk, and then the team does whatever they were going to do anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what we just hope it doesn't turn into.
Yeah. You know, speaking to a little bit more on the season, because the season structure details were recently announced. We don't have everything, but we do have, I think, the primary outline with the gaps in between. And I just kind of want to take your temperature on what's been announced so far. The fact that the majority of CrossFit's operated season is going to be online. And, you know, what types of conversations are going on right now, and what are the temperature of those conversations around what seems to be another iteration of the sport this time, where it seems like CrossFit is abdicating more involvement in favor of the online format?
I mean, look, my main touch points are with like the elite athlete cohort, right? Like those are my peers. Those are the people I talk to the most. You know, I brush shoulders at the gym locally here, but I don't know what the needs and wants and likes are of everybody at a local affiliate. From the perspective of athletes who are trying to compete at the CrossFit Games, I've yet to come across someone who likes it. I think generally speaking, anyone who's competing at that level likes to compete in person much, much more than they like to compete online. So most people don't like it. I don't think it's good for sponsors. I don't think it's good for athletes. I don't think it's really good for anyone. It's low overhead for athletes, I guess. They don't have to pay to travel or things like that. But that would be the one redeeming factor, I guess. There is the option, obviously, to compete live in this system. We don't know anything about it yet. We don't know where, we don't know when, we don't know how many times. There's a lot of details that need to come out. So it's hard to make a full decision about it. But like, if you're just considering, okay, open and then online semifinals and then games, it's like, frankly, it sucks. Not to mince words. It's like, it's not great. I think it's probably, I don't want to speculate on why CrossFit's done that, but it's just, I don't think it's a great system that most athletes want to compete in. I do think, you know, there's a lot of other competitions that exist. There's, you know, it sounds like there's alternatives that may come into fruition this season. So I think likely because of the online system and the low overhead on an athlete's part to do the online qualifiers, you'll probably get a lot of athletes who just hedge and say like, okay, well, I'm going to do the open because why not? And then I have a few months to see what this, you know, World Fitness Project season is, what's going on there. What's it look like? Does it look like it's going to be good? Great. And if it does, okay, I'm off to the races there. If it doesn't, I already did the open, so I can do the online semi or whatever, and I can do that. Or, okay, now I'll do the online semi because I'm still not sure or whatever. And people are just going to leave their options open. People who are, you know, very elite and have the ability to do so are likely to do that. And I think, you know, again, if I put my PFAA hat on, that's what I would encourage them to do. I would say like, look, there are hopefully going to be many more opportunities that start to develop. I think just given the climate in the space overall, like a lot of people are heavily invested in the ecosystem. And if CrossFit Games season is like, it's ugly and it doesn't work well and sponsors aren't happy, they're not going to vanish into thin air. They're going to look for somewhere else to go. And so those things are going to, like, you know, nature abhors a vacuum. Like there's going to be something that fills the vacuum. Yeah. And whether it's the World Fitness Project or something else like that, or there's multiple things that exist, I don't know. But we would continue to encourage athletes to go where the eating is. It's like, look, if you're interested in that and it looks interesting to you, and it's like, hey, I can make the travel, I can whatever, it's going to be good for my sponsors, my personal brand, my whatever, it allows you to earn a living and whatever, then that's terrific. Because even on the best of years, to be honest, the game season is hard. Like if you're going to compete for 7 months to have a chance to win a decent payday, if you're like healthy on the right weekend and the stars align and you manage to come even crank a top 5, like there's not a lot of people that can sink 7 months into that, more than that, right? With the training.
Yeah.
That's a long competition season without a lot of like major touch points, basically like semifinals and then games. Whereas now, if there's going to be some more options where, okay, I can take a 5-month season, compete 4 times, and then take longer off season or do other things in the off season, like pick one of the Wodapalooza events or try to get into Rogue or whatever. Maybe it allows athletes to explore more options and cast a wider net and not feel like they're shoveling all their eggs into one basket. Because that's been the toughest part, honestly, for the game season forever, is that it's like it's all or nothing, right? Like it's a 0-sum game all the way through, and like if you hiccup on the wrong day, it's all done. And like there's no second life. There was one season, it was like the last chance qualifier, but there's no second chances, which is tough, and it's not exactly representative of what athletes can do overall. So I don't know. I've spoken a little bit with the World Fitness Project people, and it sounds like they have kind of like a multi-event project that they're talking about. And there's a couple other people playing with similar ideas. And we've always thought that would be cool. Something that's like a tour thing that rewards consistency as opposed to all or nothing. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting old, but I just feel like I've also never just been a put my eggs all in one basket guy. Like I've always competed a lot in my career, like since forever.
Yeah.
I show up,
Yeah.
I do it because like, why not? What else? What am I waiting for? Like, what else am I doing? Like, that's what I like to do. That's what's fun. It's not fun to sit in a cave and train for 10 months. Like that's what we want to do. And that's why the new game season feels a little less appealing. But if it just means that one weekend I got to do it, people do an online qualifier and then the next 2 months they run around and compete wherever they feel like they can, then I don't know, maybe it works.
Yeah.
Maybe
I mean,
double dipping going on.
I was going to say, why else shovel snow if you're not going to use the walkway? Bring it back to our earlier analogy, right? Got all this fitness, got to do something with it. I did have one follow-up to that, though, because, you mentioned the World Fitness Project and other things that are potentially in the works. Maybe it's just your professional Pat Vellner hat. Maybe it's the PFAA hat, whatever, what have you. But what do you think the tipping point is? Because it seems like, there are starting to be ways to hedge against the CrossFit season. And CrossFit has been the 800-pound gorilla in the room for so long, to where they have had all the leverage and all the power and all the momentum. And it seems we're getting closer to that tipping point. I'm curious if there's anything in your mind that would finally just be the difference maker for everyone to just be like, we're done with you. And it's not saying that's something I necessarily want, but it seems like we're inching closer to that. And we've spoken to a few people about what would be the difference for them, and just saying, yeah, I don't need it. And I'm curious, where do you think that potentially is?
It's money.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Money talks. And I think that we might be seeing an evolution of that this year. I don't know. Last year, I remember talking to some athletes at Wodapalooza, January before the game season started. And they had basically, I don't think they had officially announced it, but we knew that Noble wasn't renewing with them. And they had like shown their new logo that didn't have any sponsor on it. And we were like, what does this mean? Affiliate fees just went up. They just announced that quarterfinals was going to take 25% instead of 10. And we were sitting there being like, this seems like they're trying to pad their wallets a little bit. And they're probably going to try to fund the game season on their own without a sponsor. And they can do that as long as everybody keeps showing up. But, there's a risk this year with some things that people consider mismanaged, or sponsors now kind of less keen to renew, say, that their prize money goes down. and they haven't, even last year, they didn't announce it until very late in the season when everybody was already committed. It was like after semifinals. So if they do the same thing again this year, which is pretty likely, if you ask me, if they did it last year, I don't know why they wouldn't do it this year. They've already kind of said prize money is going to be funded by the open registrations and stuff. Well, if open registration suffers based on the last year, and then the prize money is not good, you might have athletes who committed to show up this year because they didn't announce it until July, but the following year probably won't be coming back. And this is, again, just speaking from like the highest level athletes. I still think there's a lot of value in the open and those kind of community development touch points, and getting the average person to compete, I think is very important. But when you're talking about people who already want to compete and are looking to compete against the best athletes and earn a living, those things matter a lot. Like, that's how you earn your living. And if you're now talking about a season that has like less touch points and visibility for your major sponsors, also less prize money on the line, and there's alternatives that are going to allow you to compete more frequently, create more visibility, and generate just as much income, you're going to go where the eating is. And if it becomes also that, like, I think there's a tipping point in terms of who goes where if a few people leave one season in lieu of another, and then, 4 go, then 5 go, then say like 8 of the last 3 years, kind of perennial top 10 average people have now moved to another side. Like, are you gonna, there's going to be a draw to go there. And there's like, if you're truly competing, it depends why you're competing. Some people are competing just to try to win money, and maybe you stay because you're like, oh, there's a more dilute pool. Or maybe you're competing because you want to compete against the best people and challenge yourself. And then maybe you'd go because it invalidates your position if this other league exists with, most of the better athletes, say, in it. And I think that dollars follow the talent too. So if 10 out of 10 athletes go to a competing league, that's where sponsors go, that's where media goes. And it's a slow death, right? So, well, I don't know. We might be at an early stage of that. It's really hard to tell, right? Like, I don't know. I think there's definitely those conversations happening, from an athlete side, from a sponsor side, from a whatever. Like, people are trying to figure out what potential possibilities exist. How many permutations of this are there? Can I do both? Can I do one? Can I do, like, how many different seasons can I do? Are there exclusivities at play? What are my sponsor bonuses doing? Like, there's a lot of factors for athletes who are, perennial games athlete type athletes. And that's what I mean. That's why we're at, like, again, my PFAA hat is like, look, we would not push any athletes one direction or another. You need to do what you think is right. Like, we've spoken to athletes who feel like, hey, I don't have the competition pedigree or the name to feel like, if I go to a competitive league, that I'm going to be a big enough draw, or that's really going to work for me for sponsors. Maybe I need to do the game season because it's established to still generate my name for one more year. And you're like, hell yeah, do that then. Like, honestly, that's, if you feel like that's what you need to do, I feel like really what we're trying to do right now is generate relationships with any potential events or leagues that could happen, learn as much as we can about them, so I can truly give a good perspective. If someone comes and asks me, who's like 20-year-old athlete aspiring to compete at a high level, and say like, hey, what do you think I should do? I can give like a reasonable decision and say like, and again, I'm not going to make a decision for anybody, but say like, hey, look, for what it's worth, this is what I think about this one. Here's the ups, here's the downs. Here's what I think about this one. Here's the ups, here's the downs. Take it for what it's worth. Maybe you can do both, you're 20, but like that's the sort of thing that's going to happen. So I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting year, one way or another, I would say. We've seen there's parallels in other sports where this stuff has happened. It's happened in Ironman not that long ago, happened in golf really recently, and very, very publicly, right? That's exactly the live golf thing. Like, if one of these tours picks up and signs, 5 super elite athletes and gives them a pretty good ride, you're going to have guys who go do the whole game season, come like 5th at the games, and they come out worse for wear than the guy who just like took a free ride on another tour and did whatever. And it's gonna like, I don't know, not create drama, but it's gonna make people think twice about what they're doing and where they're spending their energy. And that's, at the end of the day, that's not the worst thing either. Like the CrossFit Games has existed in a vacuum for so long that they just, they haven't gotten lazy, but it's like they haven't had to necessarily polish up their product and deliver like the best possible thing because there's no competition. But maybe suddenly if there's a competition in town, you have to deliver a more polished product. And suddenly it's like, we can't get away with like really crappy communication anymore. Oh, we can't get away with, whatever it is, XYZ. And then the same on the other side. The competitive series has to go, oh, they're doing what now? Okay, what can we do to gain an edge? And it's like, it's the same reason when we're training, people are like, hey, iron sharpens iron. Like you get a couple good athletes together and they push each other to be better. And like same happens in the business world. Like you try to outcompete your competition, and that's how you're going to eat. Like you're fighting for eyes, you're fighting for your community, you're doing whatever, and you got to do what you can to try to entice those people in. So it could just push, the CrossFit Games to be better again. And even if that's the only end goal, like a competitive season starts up, gets a little momentum, ultimately fails, but it means the CrossFit Games team had to sit up a little straighter and pay more attention and do things a little bit differently, and they can then carry that into the future. That's still a really good outcome.
Yeah. Yeah,
do you think athletes are feeling pressure from sponsors though? Because when we talk about looking at the season, less opportunities to compete in person, that is where athletes get the most eyeballs, whether it's activating in person, spectators in person, seeing somebody wear a brand on a live stream. Do you think that athletes are feeling pressure to get out, and whether it's try an alternate season or do a High Rocks or whatever it is?
I think so. I think one of the best ways to look at that is that a lot of media around athletes now is personally generated. Like you look at how many different athletes now have their own YouTube and they're hiring content creators and they're generating content. Well, what do they generate content around? Is it like training for the Open or doing whatever? Like, no, 9 times out of 10, it's like, here we are at the Rogue Invitational. I can make a 3-episode series, release an episode every week for the Rogue Invitational and generate way more views than I will for like, a day in the life of blah, blah, blah. Like, here's my eating for whatever. Like that, those are happening, but the best touch points are the dramatic ones in competition. So even with sponsors aside, like from just generating viewership on your own personal brand, which is a big part of the game now for those athletes, it's important. Like having opportunities that are highly visible, highly public touch points is really good. Those are episodes where you can collaborate with other athletes, you can showcase rivalries, you can have some banter. Like they're just plainly more fun, and they're also easier to shoot and do. Like it's just like they're way better, they're way lower drag. It's good, it's entertaining content for everybody. That stuff's fun. Like, so that side for sure. I don't think sponsors, at least in my conversations I've had with people and with like some agents so far, it seems like people are having pretty open conversations about the potential of this stuff, and mostly everyone seems pretty receptive. I think the problem will be, and some of them this will surely happen to, we've tried to warn athletes of this and to get ahead of it, is like, whatever you're deciding to do, make a decision and you need to live with your decision, because you cannot try to like move the 8 ball at the last minute. So like if I say, you know what, I'm going to stick to all my bonuses in the game season as is, whatever. I'm in the middle of a contract. My sponsor has said like, hey, if you want to do this other season, we can move your bonuses from the game season to the tour season. And like, we're totally okay with that, but all the bonuses will be around overall tour finish instead of CrossFit Games finish. And they go, you know what? I'm going to stay with this one. And then all of a sudden you end up in like going into the final, I'm the tour leader. And then you're like, hey, can I actually do this? Like, you can't do that. It's going to piss people off. So, and you can't go like, well, can I get a bonus for this one and another bonus for this one? Like maybe you can, but you're going to probably take a hit on what your bonuses are worth. So it's just like, now is, it's December, when it's December, January, the time to have these conversations and renegotiate, if you're in the middle of a contract or negotiating a new contract, is probably before Wodapalooza. Like that's the first major event of the year. Some people have bonuses tied up in those events, like events that are considered like major events. You should, for the rest of December and the beginning of January, do some soul searching, have some conversations, and try to get it lined up before that, because you don't want to be like, oh, I finished Wodapalooza, I came second, going to your people like, hey, well, can I like shift this bonus? And like, some people might do you a favor, but overall it's going to annoy people. And if sponsors are like, like Tier's my major sponsor and they run Wodapalooza, if like 10 of their athletes start coming to them after the competition, trying to hunt for like a little extra bonus cash, it's like, that's going to annoy them. And so you just like, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't be that guy, right? Like, it's just like, go try to be organized, get ahead of it. Yes, it's a dramatic time. Like there's decisions that you'll make, and there's going to be people who will make decisions that pan out really good. I don't think there's a right or wrong decision, but like there's ones that like you could make a decision one way and wish you made the other one just based on how your competition's played out, and end of the end of the year going like, shit, I messed that one up. Or you could nail it, and there's going to be everything in between. But like athletes just need to think about it and make a decision and live with it and try to get it done in the next month. And like be deliberate, like actually think about it. Don't just like go, whatever, like be a driver. Like don't be a passenger in your career. Like think about it a little bit. Think about what you want to do, what you want to, where you want to be, what type of season you want to compete in, how it's going to be with your lifestyle. Like those are things that I think about so much more now than I did, especially, there's more options now, but my life is different now than it was, 7 years ago, 6 years ago. Like when I was at school, it's just like life was really simple. Like,
no kids.
Really mattered. It was like inherently everything I did was selfish. It's like, all I got to do is like learn this knowledge for myself, and then do these exercises, work out for myself, and go and have fun with my friends for myself. And like, it's just not what life's like anymore. Like now for me to go, okay, if I have to compete 5 times this year, how many of those are how far away? How much time away is that from family, from work, from this? Like, ultimately those are decisions too that drove us to move closer to family to help with things. But it's still like, that's a lot of work. There's a lot to put on my wife and my kids. And it's like, it's not sweet. So, you have to think about that. Like, don't just like make a decision and then a month later be like, oh shoot, I didn't think about that. It's like, you think about it. Now's the time to think about it. Think about it all. Talk to all the people you want to talk to. Like myself and some other PFAA members, and I think in general, the athlete body, we encourage them all to talk to each other, because there's nobody benefits from everyone existing in a silo. Like talk about what you're doing, like talk about the options and what exists, and be free with it. Don't share it with the media because you don't want it out there. But like, I think that just, it helps people come to terms with their decisions and feel better about decisions they're making, and not feel like alone and like, I've got to make this big decision and it's going to impact my next 5 years. And like everybody's feeling a little bit of that. I think like I mentioned pressure before, Lauren, but like I think that's kind of the more of the pressure people are feeling, is like, I'm going to be forced to make a decision, and making a non-decision is making a decision. Like if you say like, I'm not going to do something new, I'm going to stick to what I know, I'm going to do the old season, whatever it looks like now, that's a decision. Like it is. So non-action is an action of itself. And so be aware of that, be comfortable with whatever decision you're making, but like, don't like make the decision and be, be proud of it or own it. And just come to terms with the reasons why you're making those decisions, and then have those answers, even if it's just for yourself. Because that's really the thing, is people are going to ask. Like, I think this is a year that's going to feel like that. Like you're going to show up to the new season or the old season or whatever, and people are going to be like, so why'd you decide to do this? And it's like, you could easily feel like you're put on blast, and you want to know, like I said, even if it's just for yourself down in your bones, you want to know why you chose to take a certain route, and then just like own it. Like whatever, you don't owe anybody anything. Like it's, do what you think you need to do, or what's right for you and your people, and then just try to move forward.
Speaking to that, and I'm going to ignore the little chirp you just threw across our bow there for the media side, but it's probably deserved on their end given some recent events. But the the pressure that you speak to and the questions that you're ultimately going to field. I have a feeling this isn't going to be the first or last time you've been asked this, but Brent just recently retired. Where are you at with that kind of like lifespan? You've alluded to it in the past. You're like, I'm probably a little bit longer in the tooth or closer to the end than most. But what are the types of conversations that are going on in your head as far as like how much time you have left in the sport?
It changes day to day, right? Like, of course, I've had those conversations and I've thought about them, right? Like, but I think like something keeps me coming back, right? Like I like to compete. I like to do it. I think there's probably, I think no matter what, there's going to be a void when you stop and you're trying to kind of fight off that feeling of emptiness for as long as you can. And it's really cool to be able to compete and do these things, right? Like I think the opportunities it's given myself and my family are amazing. And I think that I want to try to continue to do it for a little longer. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try and punish myself for longer than is necessary. And I think you have to know when to call it quits. And I think always, even with Katrin retiring recently, it's like every person from like that era that goes down, it's I notice it. Like I know who's my era. Like I know it.
Yeah.
So you look up one day in the locker room and it's like it's not a lot of your people anymore, right? So it's funny. It's sort of like it happens slowly, but somehow all at once too. Like I remember even talking with Brent like years ago, like after like by like 2018 or something, like it was like our third games, and like somehow we felt like we were like these old veterans already. And I think we started much older than most of the guys do now.
Yeah.
So that's something to do with it, is like we were older than ever. Like by the time I was like 30 with 4 years of games experience or whatever it was, 4 or 5, like guys have 4 or 5 years by the time they're 24. So it's like now that group is slightly different, and I don't know. We'll see. I think that I'm getting more and more confident that the sport's in good hands on the men's side. Like I think seeing what Justin and Dallin and Jason and some of those rivalries, and like James coming into the mix, and that's just like, it's good to see. Like it's good to see those guys that are entertaining and they push each other. Those will be fun rivalries for a long time, hopefully. Because that's what Brent and I had, and that's why it was fun, and that's why it was compelling, and there was like a game within the game, and I think that's good for you as an athlete too, to like stay. It's like an extra layer of accountability, right? Like there's like still something in you that's like, every time I would show up to a competition with Brent, like it was important to me to try to beat Brent.
Absolutely,
that's great.
And for some reason, I don't have the same with Jeff. And I think it's like he's just like a little bit after us. And so he's like, I love Jeff and I compete as hard as I can against him. But like Brent and I we were the same, like came in at the same time. We were like right neck and neck right from the get-go. And there was just like always this little thing between us, which was fun. It made us both better, like across every year. And there's like, that's a big reason why I think we were able to maintain the level we did for so long. Is there's like, yeah, you find those little friendly rivalries, and they help to keep you up. And so that's what I think, some of those young guys have now, which is really cool. And I think that it'll be fun to watch them for a long time. So, for the last few years, I was like, we got to stay in, because like there's nobody else that's any good.
I love it.
Now there's guys that are good. So now it's like, if I won't leave, it's not like some bum's going to come in and win it. Like everybody's getting good again. So, but I think there's of my kind of group, I feel like there's like me and BKG left. And like Gianna's still around. I don't know. There's not a lot of other ones from that kind of 20, like, and I'm after those guys. Those guys were like 2014.
Yeah. Those guys had a couple of years, but even then, I don't know. It's still like, even though there's fewer people, I do think, and I think this was primarily what I saw at the Tier Cup this year. those younger guys do have a way of pulling some extra out of you, like old vets. Like I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever seen Brent hurt like that than he did on the single
No, it was
modality
great.
like event. So it was like, yeah, you guys are like, maybe the ball's rolling a little downhill at this point, but you guys still got a little something left to give. And the younger puppy that the family just got maybe pulled a few extra Zoomy sessions out of you.
That's a bit what it feels like too, is I think that like, I've crested the hill and like, but we still got a little bit of glide to go down. And I think there's some fun stuff I can do for another couple of years. And I think the hard thing is that I think we're starting to lose the stranglehold mentally on some of these kids. Because I think when people come in, there's like this, they don't think they can beat you, so they can't. And then the worst thing you can do is let them get a little confidence, right? And so, now they're getting a little bit confident. That's dangerous now. And that was like the tough part about like having Dallin on my team at Tier Cup was that I had to gas him up so bad. Now he's dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Whoops.
But who's having more FOMO then? You or Brent?
Sorry?
Who's having more FOMO? You or Brent? Like, do you guys talk about like, maybe he is bummed that, Rogue was his last one, but then maybe you're bummed that, he can enjoy and maybe put on a couple LBs during the Christmas season.
Yeah, look, I don't think Brent's very bummed about his Rogue. But I will say, I think as people who compete, like I love to watch other people compete. Like even something like Tier Cup was awesome because like you get out there and you do your thing and you put your shift in, and then when you got off and you had to watch other people go, you were like, hell yeah. And I'm like so glad, like, hey, glad I don't have to do those thrusters. Like it was great. And I remember at Rogue we had locker rooms and there was like 4 athletes to a room. And our room was me, Jeff, Brent, and Justin. And we just kind of chill up there between events. And like after every event, pretty much, Brent would have some comment about like whatever was in the event, come up and we'd like all sit down. Everybody's like, we had to walk upstairs to get there too. It was a bit of a punish, but you get up there, you park your ass down and you have a bite to eat and you're just like sitting down and Brent goes, whew, well, not a bad way to end my thruster career, huh, boys? You're like, this guy never has to do thrusters again. Like, so I think there's something like
that's crazy to think about.
I think that he was enjoying and relishing that a little bit. He, and he had strong finishes in some events where like he otherwise maybe in the past has struggled and, did the like bike muscle up snatch workout, popped the like 3rd place in and was like, awesome. Don't have to ride the Echo bike like that anymore if I don't want. And you're like, yeah, man, hell yeah. I do. I'm going to do that when I get home, like first thing. And so that's kind of fun. I think he took it in stride and had a lot of fun with it. But I think he'll be around a little bit too. So he's going to be fun to have around at events. And I think he will enjoy watching us do it. Me probably more than most. But yeah, I think all of us we've all been in that for so long. And like, I know what that feels like. So when you watch somebody else, like that Tier Cup event, like watching Dallin and Brent do that and Emily and Gracie, I was like, I know, like, and the only thing worse than doing something like that is having to do it in front of everybody. And I was like, no,
you can't let someone have it, right? Like,
no. It was insane. Like watching Emily like fail a burpee at the end. I was like, girl, you got to run 500 meters. Like you better get it. But oh my God, it was so good. Like you're just, I loved it. Everybody loved it. And it was so good because only one person had to do it. Like everybody else on the team was like, it's like when you see something so crazy, you just have to laugh. You're like pumping them up for the like 90 seconds they're going for like something. And then you watch them finish and you all look at each other and you're like, did you see that? Like it was too funny. So I think there's a lot of that. We love doing that at competition. So even for myself, when I retire, maybe I'll do a little tour. I'll show up and sit in the press booth or try to get somewhere and just watch somebody
and laugh the whole time.
The play-by-play of what's going on in their heads.
Oh, now that is the commentary that we need.
You just need we need one camera to be like zoomed in really tight, just framing faces. And then I won't be visible, but I'll just do voiceover for like
Pat's inner thoughts.
for like in their head.
Oh my God, I love it.
It'll be good. We'll just have that. It'll be great content.
I can't wait. Well, Pat, thank you so much for taking the time to, sit down with us, have a transparent conversation. We always appreciate catching up with you, and good luck with the holidays and the new house.
Yeah, thanks so much. We'll see you guys later. You too. Enjoy the holidays.
Big thanks to Pat Vellner for taking the time to do that. And I had, being from California like Tommy, I've only shoveled snow once in my life, and it was.
Wait, no.
Yes. I lived in Montana, but I didn't shovel snow. Didn't have to shovel snow there. It snowed, but I did not shovel snow. And Florida.
Who shoveled it for you?
There was no shoveling. Like I lived in an apartment, so I didn't have to shovel any snow.
Oh.
But here, living in the mountains now, we had that one winter where I had to shovel my whole driveway twice with a garden shovel. And I'm like, oh, I get it. Now I understand why people gripe about this, because it is, it took its toll. I was out there. I looked like I had my jacket. I had my hockey gloves on because those were only like waterproof hand protection things I had. And I had this garden shovel, and I'm just like doing the best I can to shovel out my driveway. And I had a whole new appreciation for people who have to do that on the regular. Never again. It was not fun. So God bless you.
Or
Pat.
you just get a big enough vehicle where you don't need to shovel your driveway.
No, we had to. We had like a 4Runner, which is our beater up car, and that still had to shovel the driveway. It was a good foot of snow that we had.
It's tough.
That was an important life lesson. Yeah, belt up. Okay, before we close this thing out, we don't have any community support this week, but we always like to get the word out on things that are going on out there in the community. If you guys are trying to help a gym out, help a friend out, send us the information. Send us as many details as you possibly can, because we like to make sure that we are directing people to the right spot. You can hit us up on Instagram, on our personal accounts, or on the Talking Elite Fitness account, and we'll do our best to get the word out there. We got PRs and no reps. I actually got a couple PRs. I don't know if I have any no reps. Trying to be positive. I guess the holiday season.
Ooh.
Go ahead, Tommy. You want to start?
I just had a no rep.
Yeah.
What was it? Oh.
Okay, you think about it. My no rep is when somebody makes eye contact with you when you're going for a lift. They just like lock eyes. What? Accidentally,
right? But then
they're watching you lift,
and then you look right at them.
Look up, and your eyes lock.
It's just awkward.
It ain't good. One of my friends at the gym, it happened to us today. She turned around to watch my lift, and she was standing right in front of me.
First of all, don't do that.
And I was like, I can't lift this now. Now I'm just gonna do a nice big high pull and put it down.
There you go.
I would do that with my buddy Carl all the time. So he does a hybrid like high bar, low bar squat. So his eyes are a little bit further down and not forward. But once he gets out of the bottom, he'll like his eyes will pan up. Mm-hmm. So I would sit at the bottom of a squat during one of my warm up sets. So he would he would start to go down. I would unrack the bar and come down. So when he would bounce out of the bottom, he would look up, and I'd be sitting there smiling at him.
Oh man!
I'm pretty sure I made him fart in the middle of one of his back squats because he laughed at the bottom of a back squat.
That's a great feeling.
Yep.
Because it's too late. You can't cover it up with a cough. Because those are surprise ones when you're squatting. They just happen to come out. Mm-hmm. You can't cover that up at all.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Really? You haven't lived then.
On a GHD, and then you
then you're just dispersing it around the gym with the fanning motion makes it even worse.
The human fart fan.
You can't. Yeah.
I was the human fart fan.
There you go.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, Tommy, have you decided you're no rep, or we're gonna move to PRs?
Well, I was gonna no rep the special teams, the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, what is happening with that?
That was
their curse. It's the curse of Leon Lett, is what it is.
It is. It's funny because I think I was talking about it with my father-in-law, and I was like, they're about to get the ball back, and I'm like, you know what? Even when it feels like it's in your corner, you could block a field goal or a punt. and then someone like Leon Lett could try and recover it, and screw the whole thing up. And then that happened.
Oh.
And what did they talk about?
Leon
Lett one.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my buddies summed it up really well. As the teams are going back and forth, he texted our group. He goes, "I hate to break it to these teams, but someone has to win this game," because neither team wanted to win.
You had a good year. Miles had a good winning streak too. Like he came into the world, and now the Cowboys are 2-1. So
he was hot, but I just I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of relieved because it just puts any hope of like a playoff run and getting destroyed in the first round out of reach.
Yeah,
just put them out of their misery. Let's reset for next year.
That hope that's a dangerous thing.
It is a very.
That's a good segue into my PR because I got a PR just the NFL in general. They had, because of that game, they did the Simpsons game on Disney Plus, and it was fantastic. Like they get it. Like the NFL is not only is a great league, it's just a marketing juggernaut. Like to be able to have the technology to make it look like they're in Springfield, and they had Moe's Juice Bar on the sidelines. They would be able they were able to put like Bart and Homer and Lisa and Milhouse into the game. To have that like almost real time be translated into what looks like a really good cartoon was fantastic. And they had, the announcers were dropping the impossible things. Like, what an impossible angle that was. And they had,
that was fantastic.
It was just,
I went back and watched
it was
that.
so enjoyable. I mean, if you're a kid or you're just trying to get someone into football and you watch that, it was just entertaining as hell. And then the second thing is that, you know what? And this is a retroactive one because this happened on Thanksgiving. My wife played me a song. She's like, "You gotta listen to the song. It's by Shabuzi." I go, "What the hell is what's a Shabuzi?" She's like, and she played me that song. I'm like,
"Sean, you listen."
I listened to it. I was like, "All right, this is good," but I didn't know who or what a Shabuzi.
Was it Tipsy, the bar
song? I was like, okay, all right, I'm in.
Me and Jack then
I find country music pretty much abhorrent. And then they had him at halftime, and I watched him at halftime, and I went, all right, I'm a fan. Good job, Shabuzi.
Wow.
I'll listen.
Wow.
I'll listen. I enjoyed it.
Tommy, put it in a little notebook the day that Sean turned country.
No.
Somebody calls Satan. Is his house frozen over?
I was like, okay, you got me, Shabuzi. Mr. Shabuzi. I don't know. Is that your first name? Is it his family name? Whatever.
That sentence is the most.
You got me.
I will say this. That sentence, Sean, is the most like grumpy old dad sentence I've ever heard. What is it? A Mr. Shabuzi? A Mr. Shabuzi?
I don't know.
What's a Shabuzi?
I'm sorry. Let me ask this person named Jelly Roll. Maybe he'll know. But it was good. Like I was like, all right. So the NFL, man, and then also whoever wrote the script for the Rams-Bills game, that was amazing. So yeah, the NFL, just love it. Good stuff. Lauren, you got a PR?
Oh my God. Yeah, it's like half a no rep and half a PR.
Oh.
So remember last week when I was no repping Shark robot vacuum?
The vacuum. The saga continues.
Well, it freaking continues. So then 3 days ago, I get an email notification that now the order is canceled because the one that they then ordered me was out of stock, and apparently they're never going to restock it. So I call them and I'm just like, are you kidding me? This is never going to get resolved. And I immediately asked for a manager.
Uh-oh.
I didn't even deal with the BS. I was like, I don't want a regular worker. I need the manager. And he upgraded me, and it will be here tomorrow.
There you go.
So the silver lining in the no rep has now turned into a PR.
I actually do have a no rep now you mentioned that. The company that is working on my water softener, I'll break the rule. I've been working on this since October. First time they sent a guy up here, he got here and he's like, I'm not qualified to work on this. I don't know. We'll send somebody else. Right. So then this is October. So then fast forward, we finally make another appointment for December to get someone here. It was this last Friday. Who shows up? The same guy.
No.
The same guy showed up.
I would die.
Wait a minute. I thought, yeah. So that didn't go well.
Did he get like more education?
He just said, I think it's the circuit board. And he took the circuit board out, and we go, okay, what are you going to do? Well, we're going to order a new one. So you'll hear from us. All right. So it was.
See, that was October me.
Yeah.
December me is now qualified.
Yeah. I took a few classes online.
I'm
So
sorry,
that
but
was-
I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
That's pretty much what it was. Yeah, that may have been what it was. But
Wow.
all right. Well, we're winding the year down. So I think
Oh, I will PR Christmas treats.
Christmas
That time of
treats.
year. Yes.
What
Peanut
ones?
brittle, Rocky Road fudge,
Mm,
Hershey's Kiss imprint cookies.
yeah.
7-layer bars.
Wow.
Yeah, all the good stuff. I popped by my parents' house the other day,
The
and
good stuff.
Mom was thrown down in the beat laboratory.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, I was like, oh, I need to leave now because
going
that peanut
down.
brittle is fresh. But yep,
All right. Good job,
it's that time of year.
Mama Marquez. I feel like your mom could lay down some nasty beats. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
She cooks. She
she's-
cooks in the laboratory.
Yeah, she does. She
Walter
gets
White in there with her Christmas cookies.
the Walter White and
Yeah.
Christmas cookies. She won't understand that reference,
But it's a good one.
but
It's a
It
compliment.
is a great one.
It's
It's
a
a great
compliment. I
one.
want your parents to adopt me, by the way. They're fantastic people.
Oh,
They are. I want them to adopt me
Yeah.
too.
Well, we only have a couple of shows left, I think, in the year. So usually we might have to do like our end of the year awards that we usually do. We kind of make those up. So we
Ooh.
might have to have that coming up. And then we're going to be into 2025. And before you know it, the Open and Wadapalooza will be here. And then it's going to be like, what happened? We're at the games. So anyway, that's going to do it for today. Thank you to Pat Vellner for taking the time out of his busy schedule and shoveling snow to talk to Lauren and Tommy. Really appreciate that. Thanks again to our sponsors, Creatures of Habit, creaturesofhabit.com. Use the code TEF. You'll save 20%. Firstform.com/TEF. Get stocked up on all kinds of good stuff. And of course, our great friends at Thirdsy. Thirdsy.com/TEF. You'll save 20%. For Lauren Khalil and Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland. Take care of each other. Be better. And we will talk to you guys next time.
Like a kiss at the start of a first date. If it's good, I don't want to wait. When the feeling's right, I'm taking it.